I'm dishing with musicians. I'm dishing with musicians. A talk show about history. I'm dishing with musicians. I'm dishing with musicians. Let's take a stroll down music history.
Oh my God. The theme song came back. We came back. Technologically, we're here. We're a little late, but man, I want to cuss in the worst way right now. But you know what? I'm too excited about tonight. I'm not going to do it. Folks, we got a little late start because my computer was acting like Tiny Tim when I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. But this was incredible experience trying to get this working tonight. My computer was like slow Jello mold dripping off a building, and we're here. We're here. Okay. I hope you're joining. I hope you're sharing. I hope you're doing all those organic things we love, because I've been waiting for this for so long. He's an old time friend from Chicago. I know him from actually playing in Lincoln, Nebraska, my hometown, in his previous band. So the folklore around that whole thing is incredible. So this whole thing is going to be great. We're going to talk about bluegrass. We're going to talk about him being a world traveler. I'm going to bring him on right now, folks. Mr. Ben Wright in the house. Ben, what's up?
Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
You too, dude. You were so gentlemanly when I was working out the kinks here. Most people would be under their breath calling me an absolute idiot, but
I felt your pain, man. Like, it was a ghosted machine.
Yeah, I know. And this is where we're at today, right? We're at the mercy of technology, and it can be a curse, and it's great at the same time.
Exactly.
Man, thank you so much for doing this tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. For sure. I'm a big fan of all of your bands. I've brought you to Nebraska with the Folk and Roots Festival.
Great festival.
Yes, I constantly follow you guys around. I'm a huge fan. So this is going to be great. We kind of have to dig a little bit into the precursor of Henhouse Prowlers, actually, with some of your early bands, which I'm excited to talk about. Yeah. So, and I know you from those bands too, which I don't know if you know that, but your days of playing Knickerbockers here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
That was a long time ago. I don't get a chance to talk about that stuff very often.
Yeah, man. And I hope there's people out there that are watching that. And don't forget, folks, you can comment in. This is a live broadcast, so please do. But I hope there's some people out there that came to those shows, because there's a lot of folklore. My brother actually opened up for you, and he was telling me about you guys. And it was just this strange moment in time. It was when it was like the upheaval, like the reinvention of bluegrass in old time, right? And one might arguably point back to, certain movies that might have done that.
Sure.
Oh, brother, where art thou? Or,
yeah. That was the epicenter, or that was the impetus for it all.
Yeah.
Gurgling to the surface again.
Yes. The reawakening. So
yeah. Yeah, it was amazing.
So around that time, you were playing old time music. You were doing bluegrass and folk and all kinds of cool stuff and country.
I'm trying to remember what year. Do we know what year Old Brother came out?
I can find out.
Yeah, find out. Because I bought my first banjo in 1999.
2000.
So it was 2000. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. I bought my first banjo right before that.
Oh my gosh.
And then that movie came out and ignited passion all over the world for that kind of music.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you had people in the movie like Alison Krauss and Emmylou Harris. You had people in the movie that were doing it and have been doing it, right? Right. You got Emmylou Harris was doing it. I mean, way back. I mean, she's always been doing it. So it was, for them, it was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was I think they did a couple years ago, the IBMA, which is the International Bluegrass Music Association, that is this consortium of all the professionals in the bluegrass world, have this annual meeting in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I think on the 20-year anniversary, they did this big celebration of that movie because there's no question that it helped the genre maintain its relevance and then go beyond that.
Right.
And it was huge for the industry for sure.
So shortly after that, I got a job working at a place called the Old Town School of Folk Music, and I repeatedly talk about it on this show of mine because it changed my life. Really. I just happened to stumble into this place and I had no idea what it was. I didn't grow up in Chicago. You did, right?
No, I'm from upstate New York.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I moved here in 99.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So for a guy like me from Nebraska to stumble onto that was just like, it was like an awakening within myself, meeting certain people that played there and getting free shows and free classes if you're an employee. It was like, yes, what's happening to my life right now? So, and that's where you and I kind of met. But I knew of you before that. I knew of your bands before that.
Yeah, that place is a institution, and honestly, like that's part of my that this Old Town School is a huge part of my starting like my career. Like in October of 1999, I was walking down Lincoln Avenue by the Old Town School and saw a banjo in the window.
Wow!
And I was like, I think I want to play that. And walked in and bought it right there.
Oh my God.
And took it home. And I have this distinct memory of pulling it out of this cheap case and putting it up on a couch and just kind of staring at it for a few minutes and having this weird premonition that I was like, this is my thing. Like, this is my thing. I can't do anything. I have no idea how it works, but this is going to be my thing. And, and now, we're playing a show next week at the Old Town School.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's so great.
And there's something always weird and beautiful about going back and playing there and knowing that that's where my career started and it's where it is now too.
Yes.
It's a great place.
You heard a voice, kind of your destiny was calling out for you or something.
Yeah, it was something like that.
There's weird story. Is this the infamous banjo that you bought in the window that now has made illegal travels around, with a thief, so to speak?
No, that's another one.
My God.
This one, I still have it, but it's, it was a $200 banjo. Okay. It was like what you start on.
Starter banjo. Yeah.
And so I have it and I hold it dear to me, but that other banjo, that's a whole other story.
Yeah. And just a real quick overview, because it's a fascinating tale. Real quick.
Yeah. So 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, we were touring in San Francisco, and I had this banjo that a guy in Michigan had made, a guy named Rock. And he doesn't make too many instruments, but it was a great banjo. I met him at a show. He had it with him. I played it. I loved it. And it was way more than I could afford.
Okay.
And he sensed how much I loved it and called me a couple days later and was like, I'll send it to you. Give me money when you have it. I paid him like $20 a month for a couple of years, up to about $500. And he was just like, we're done. It's yours.
It's your, he just,
so a few years later, we were in San Francisco, and it was the day we auditioned for this American Music Abroad program, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point.
Sure.
And it was a very stressful audition. And when it was over, we were really excited, and we went back and stayed at an old friend's house. And that night, clearly a outfit, like an operation, came and stole every instrument and everything out of our van.
Oh, so it was planned. It was like straight up.
It had to have been. John's upright bass was there.
God.
Somebody clearly pulled up with a vehicle and unloaded everything into it.
Oh my gosh.
And so that it was gone, and it was gone. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, I woke up one morning to a bunch of messages and a phone call from Rock, the guy who made the banjo. And I called him back. I hadn't talked to him in years. And he's like, Ben, I think I found your banjo on eBay.
Oh
and
my God.
I was like, what? And he sent me the link and I looked at it and it was unmistakably my banjo. And this whole thing unfolded where I reached out to the person who was selling it. They were selling it for $500.
Oh.
And I explained to the guy the situation. But in the meantime, I actually took a screenshot of it and posted it on Facebook and said, does anybody have any thoughts of what I should do?
Yes.
And the eBay seller's ID number was in that photo. And people started reaching out to him saying, give Ben his banjo back.
Oh, God. It's
and
like
the guy,
Free Ferris Bueller, man.
Yeah, right. And the guy didn't speak English very well.
Oh, my
He
God.
got confused and was like, everybody's telling me it's their banjo. And I was like, no, they're telling you it's my banjo. And so he finally was like, look, I'm selling it for some guy at a flea market. He wanted $300. I was going to keep the $200 on top of that. And I said, I'll give you the $300.
Yeah.
But if you could send it to me,
yes.
And he said, yeah. And I said, hey, is there a case that came with it? Because the case I had was really nice. He's like, yeah, but it's back at the flea market and it'll take me a week to get it. And I said, I'll wait. And sure enough, like 10 days later, UPS showed up at my door.
Wow.
And there was the banjo.
That is crazy.
8 years later. And it, clearly had sat outside for a long time. This guy in Chicago, for a very reasonable price, restored it into
oh
really
my gosh.
shape.
How beautiful is that story?
Man. Yeah, right.
Wow. That is that is crazy, man. I had a guitar that so when I worked at Old Town School, we were like paycheck to paycheck broke, my wife and I. And sometimes you got to let things go. And I had this really cool Bavarian arch top guitar, arch back guitar, actually. Cool. And it was a classical guitar and I just loved it, but I had to let it go. And I even wrote about it in songs. Like, lyric was, if we sell my items, baby, someday I'll get them back, So for my 40th birthday, my wife, I love her so much. She called Steppenwolf Theater because that was the last place I knew, because they bought it for a show on consignment at the Old Town. And they used it in a show at the Steppenwolf. And she called him and just on a like last chance effort, called him and said, do you happen to have this guitar? And they dug in there. They literally have, I didn't know this, but they have warehouses of props.
Oh, sure.
And stuff, because it's a huge theater in Chicago. And 2 days later, the story was so endearing that, like your case, everybody jumped on the bandwagon and they found it. They totally found it and sold it back to my wife. So for my 40th birthday, I opened this and I was like, what is this? You can buy me a guitar. What is this? You never buy me guitars because she doesn't know what I like,
Right.
And so it's like impossible. You can't please a guitar player,
Right.
And so she goes, if you sell your items, baby, someday you'll get them back. And I knew instantly what it was. And I was like, there is no way you found. God. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that's all.
And you could tell immediately when you pulled it out,
totally. Yep, absolutely. And I knew
such an amazing.
Yeah, because it had a really unique arch back.
Oh.
And who is the dude that played in the hallways all the time? Red hair, really cool red mustache.
Chris. Why am I blanking on his name?
Not Smithers or
no. But he looks like Smithers.
Yes. Anyway, it was.
I know you're talking.
It was that Chris
Walls.
Chris Walls. Chris Walls was the guy that played it in the show. And so it just had all this history and it was like, oh my God. So
that's so cool, dude.
Yeah. No, it's just like these, there's good people left in the world, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can really feel it when
your wife's one of them, man.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, she's a gem. She's a total gem for doing that. I couldn't believe that she found it, but it's like one of those things where you're like, oh, dude, I was combing eBay and I think I found your banjo. It's
and you know the feeling, man. The minute I took it out of the case, I mean, it was emotional.
Yes.
It was
right.
like I was welling up inside,
dude.
realizing this thing I had written off years ago, and I remember for years I always had these thoughts like, I wonder where it is right now.
Yeah.
And in my head, I always thought it was like sitting in the closet in like a criminal's house who had no idea
that
it wasn't worth anything to them, you know?
Right.
Like,
Sentimentally, it didn't mean crap, right? Yeah. Right. Isn't that funny? It's almost like you willed it back to yourself. That's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very fortunate thing for sure.
Anyway, sorry to take a side route there. That side route street is pretty darn cool, because when I read that story, I was like, dude, Ben, that's a great story.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I mean, we talked about your prehistory of Henhouse Prowlers, and then, you know, you got really, really good at the banjo. And so let's talk about from where your practicing took you to being in that band.
Yeah, so I bought that banjo at the Old Town School, and at the time, I mean, I was 23 or something, and I had time on my hands. Honestly, I lived at this place that was kind of it's the kind of place you live in your 20s. Like, it was a community that served homeless people, and a lot of times my job was just to be present so that if things went wrong, there was somebody there to take care of it. So I could sit on the front porch of this house in Uptown with 6 or 7 other often unfortunate people, just having a place to feel safe and warm.
Sure.
And I could practice for 6 hours.
Wow.
And then real quickly after I bought the banjo, there were a couple people in that house that also played music, and they let me play in this band with them. I mean, honestly, we're talking probably day 5 of me owning this banjo. I knew the forward roll and 3 chords.
Yes.
And they let me play with them. And I tell all my students that story because, there's a huge difference between practicing on your own and playing with other people. And one of the greatest gifts that I ever had was being able to, that early on, play along with people.
Right.
And so,
and to not be ashamed, right, of your playing.
Yeah, like, and you're right. Like, it was a very welcoming scene. Mm-hmm. They weren't like trying to be famous. They were just like, let's play music together.
Yeah.
And so there was no judgment about how terrible I was. Thank God.
Yeah. And that's the biggest, from what I see from young players, that's the biggest hurdle, right? Stage presence and just fear of failing.
Yeah, which I went through too, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I had another band, a bluegrass band that I joined. It kind of fizzled out as I was continuing to improve, and then. And one day I was at the Red Line Tap in Rogers Park.
Yes.
And I saw this band, Outlaw Family Band.
Oh, dude.
And they were rock and roll, man.
Yes, like, they were.
Electric guitar. And I remember the lead singer, this guy, James Weigel, was singing a song called Syracuse. And that's where I'm from. And that immediately just felt like this, these guys, I remember thinking, like, these guys need a banjo.
Yes.
Right. And I talked to them during a set break, and I'm like socially comfortable with stuff. And I was just like, hey, I think you guys need a banjo. And they weren't comfortable telling me no. And they probably should have. And I remember saying, like, well, where do you guys practice? And they told me. I was like, when? And they're like, Wednesdays. And I was like, okay, I'm coming to your next practice.
They just couldn't say no.
Yeah, right. Totally.
That's so great.
That's so totally what happened. And I remember I called my mom, and I borrowed $700 to buy an electric banjo.
Oh my gosh.
Which I had never played electric anything. I had no idea what that meant. But I showed up to rehearsal at their practice space, and I was just kind of like, I willed myself into the band.
That's your whole thing, dude. You just will yourself into things.
That's right.
That's so good. That's so good.
And then that band, that band was good, man.
Legendary Red Line Tap band, dude.
Yeah. And we toured some, and we Nebraska was a place we played fairly often.
Yes.
Lincoln was.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if, when you were mentioning, there's a wild story about that band in Lincoln. one night that I wonder if we've talked about this. It was at the Zoo Bar. Do you know this
I
story?
No, I don't think I do know that story because when you guys were touring, I was in Chicago.
Right, right.
So friends of mine from Lincoln were calling me from Lincoln and saying, "Dude, there's this band that's like rock country or rock bluegrass,
Yeah.
and I know you'd love them." And I was like, "Who?" And they're like, "Outlaw Family Band." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know those guys." Like, you know, they play all the same places that Haywood Yards plays, and it's like we were kind of doing the same thing, but you guys, I think, were a little more traditional than we were. But
Yeah, I mean, I was just along for the ride.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I could.
But I don't know that story. I don't know about the Zoo Bar story. I'm
So
curious now.
yeah, we played the Zoo Bar one night, and there was a great crowd, and that band was loud. Oh my God, was that band loud? And we, the Zoo Bar behind this, which I love the Zoo Bar. It's like
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
like the old posters on the wall. And you can just tell that it is a stop for bands going between the Midwest and Colorado, and
totally.
thousands of bands have come through there,
Yep,
thousands and thousands.
yep.
And the back of the Zoo Bar goes into this little alley, and there's people that live back there. Like,
Yeah.
and so we were playing this, super loud show, really high energy, and all of a sudden I see a police officer come in the front door,
Oh, geez.
and he makes a beeline to the stage. And I remember he gets in front of the stage and he looks James, our lead singer, in the eye, and he goes like this.
Oh, God.
And so we were in the middle of this huge jam,
Oh,
and
geez.
like it just kind of petered out. And we looked at the cop, and the cop says, "Somebody called in a bomb threat. Everybody needs to get out of here now."
Oh, my God.
And like, so we unplugged our instruments and ran out the front door. And
What?
yeah, and it turned out to be somebody who lived behind there, was so tired of how loud we
So
were
pissed.
that they called it a bomb threat.
That's genius. I mean, shitty, but genius.
Yeah.
What?
And so we finally were allowed back in, and we got back up on stage and just restarted the song in the middle of it and finished it out and finished off the rest of the night.
Dude, that has got to be a Guinness Book of World Record or something.
It was a wild night, man.
The song that has a bomb threat chorus
Yeah, right.
that you continue to the end.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is that fantastic or what?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I bet that's probably a story that you tell in that band. That, when you're driving home, you were probably just like, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, I know I've told
God.
it to young members of the Henhouse Prowlers.
Oh my gosh.
As I get older, there are more and more of those.
Yes, right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. I remember seeing you guys at the Horseshoe
Yeah.
on Lincoln Avenue.
Which is no longer there.
It's no longer there. We loved, actually, I've talked about that to a few people on this program now. And that was a kind of a legendary place. Like it started out of nowhere, and it was super nice, but they were going for this sort of Dukes of Hazzard country theme. And they always played either Dukes of Hazzard, or they always played a video of somebody pulling a catfish out of a hole.
That's right. You're right. I totally
You remember that crazy shit? Because you'd be playing, and I would just sometimes lose where the hell I was in a song because this woman was like shoulder deep inside of a catfish.
Totally.
And I was like, what the frick?
I forgot about that, but you're right. It was on kind of loop.
It was.
Like, yeah.
Super weird Oklahoma. They called it like muddling, or there's a name.
Mudding or something.
Mudding. Yeah, there's a name for it. And I was just enthralled by these videos.
Yeah.
And so the owners didn't really mesh with the kind of place it was.
Yeah.
So it sort of felt like an Applebee's that just turned honky tonk,
Yeah,
in
that's
weird
a good
way.
description.
Yeah.
And then there was some drama that went down there at the end too. And so it collapsed pretty epically.
Yes.
But that was, we played every Thursday there for a long time.
Yeah, I saw you guys there quite a few times, and you just always brought it. I mean, just a killer band.
Those were, and you know how it is. Like for me, for both for the Outlaw Family Band and for Henhouse Prowlers, like playing weekly was what allowed those bands to get better.
Totally.
And you can't just rehearse weekly.
Right.
You got to play weekly.
Yeah, because the crowd dictated your show most of the time, if I remember right. You guys really fed off the crowd, and I think you had like 2 or 3 singers in that band.
Yeah, like that band.
It was kind of a all multi-talented band.
4 singers in that band. And it really, and then for a while we had a pedal steel player too. Like it was,
I remember that. Yeah.
It was loud and completely inefficient to make money as a band.
Yes.
Yeah,
totally. That's how Haywood Yards was. We'd roll it. Like we'd get hired for private parties through Old Town School. And one time they hired us to play this older, rich, like everybody had white hair and they were super white people. And they were, like I say that with all respect to everybody, but it was just a very like wealthy party. It was a wealthy party and we should not have been playing it. And we were like, oh, these people are straight up aristocrats. And we are not, and they literally came up and were like, they requested the Confederate song.
Oh, nice.
And I was like,
in Chicago.
It was in a suburb.
Yeah, of course.
But they called Old Town School wanting a band, and they had a program that you could,
right.
They were like, oh, well, we can refer these guys. And we were probably right for the party because they wanted like a bluegrassy type band, but it just didn't sit well with us. And so we really, without being total dicks, we really, kind of, I don't know if we offended them, but we didn't play that stuff, like it was very strange, but anyway.
I have another funny missing banjo related story from the Horseshoe. Believe it or not, one night we were loading out and surely intoxicated. And we loaded the van and drove back to our rehearsal space. And we got to the rehearsal space, and at the end, we were loading everything in. And James looked at me and he's like, "Where's my guitar?" And I said, I don't know, where's my banjo? And we realized we'd left them on the curb in front of the Horseshoe. And so we called the Horseshoe and immediately, and we were like, go out front. And they went out and they were like, well, there's a guitar here, but there's no banjo here.
Oh no.
And so we drove back and we looked around fruitlessly, and we got in the van to go bring James's guitar back and I was just like, my banjo's gone. Like somebody walked off with my banjo.
Oh my God.
And I remember telling Dan, the bass player who was driving, I said, hey, instead of going back the way we just went, go down Irving Park. And he was like, why? And I was like, you just never know. And we started driving down Irving Park.
It's hammered.
There's a homeless guy walking with my banjo.
You are kidding.
I'm not kidding. And so we pulled into this alley right in front of him, and I leaned my head out the window and I go, hey, that's mine. And the guy goes, oh, I thought it was my lucky day. And he just handed it to me.
Dude, you're killing me with these theft like, theft imageries.
Yeah, I remember the band they were all just kind of shaking their heads, and they were just
God,
that shit only happens to you.
It only happens to dude. That's outrageous, man.
Yeah.
That's so badass.
Yeah.
Like, and plus, it's like it's so funny too because like, the stereotype of like, who would want to steal a banjo? Like
the funny thing was it was an electric banjo. It wasn't very like nice, or
was it?
It was fine.
Was it one of those that had the scroll with the circle in the middle?
That was the first one I bought.
Okay.
This was Neckville, which is fine.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good instrument. It's still an electric banjo, and they always sound like crap. They do. I hate electric.
It's a distinct weird tinny sound. Yeah.
But the thing about it was in a nice case. And that's the guy saw James's guitar, which was like a 1975 a Gibson jazz guitar that is just worth a fortune. Like, but it was in the original case, which was kind of falling apart. And the guy was like, I can only carry one of these. I'm going to keep the nicer looking one, which was worth a fraction of what the Gibson was worth.
Oh my gosh. That is outrageous, man. Yeah. What a story. That's like the Indiana Jones movie where they're drinking from the fountain of youth, or what they have to drink from the goblet, and of course it's the shittiest looking one, right?
Right, of course, right. The
chalice of youth, or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, whatever the golden. Yeah, I know.
There's a name for it. Yeah. I can't remember it. If somebody knows out there, please let us know.
It's the oh my God, I can't. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan.
I know. I can't think of it.
I'm thinking about music.
I know. Hold on. I'm going to look for it now.
The Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail, right? Yes, that's it. God, fascinating. God, that is so funny, dude. That is so funny. Wow. So you got to know, like you guys during that time in Chicago, like there was a definite like swing into this alt country Bloodshot Records type. Did you guys ever get approached by Bloodshot?
No, I mean, I think what my understanding of it is that the alt country stuff kind of was big in the late 90s. And like hit its peak commercially in the late 90s. And by the time we were coming up, it just wasn't as appealing to the people who are thinking about selling records. And so I remember Bloodshot Records came out to one of our shows to see an opener.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't care about us. And like
that's really mind-blowing to me, because you guys were perfect for that label.
Yeah, it was, and somehow that band just fell under the radar. And that's okay with me. Like it like all early bands in a person's career, it wasn't hitting the business stuff we should have been hitting. And it just wasn't working in a sustainable way, you know. And that band really taught me what I wanted out of a band, not just musically, but also financially, and how, you know, just how being in a band is you spend so much time with these people that it's got to be the right guys. They got to be respectful of each other. I'm not saying that people in that band weren't respectful of each other. I'm just saying, like, it taught me a lot about how to be a touring musician, and what I'm looking for in bandmates. And I'm grateful for it. I'm going to see the fiddle player tomorrow night.
Oh, cool, man.
For the first time in a long time.
Killer.
And so I will always hold that band near and dear. And we play once a year when COVID isn't. We'll do one show at like that Rogers Park Festival or something.
Oh, is that right? Cool, man. I got to keep an eye out for that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it pops up again. It's harder and harder because it used to be that the Henhouse Prowlers would play that festival too, and then I'm going to be there. It'll be easy. Now it's like usually we're on the road somewhere, so it makes it more difficult.
Sure.
But,
man.
Like that, and that band really let myself and James, the guitar player, and Ryan, the fiddle player, we all wanted to continue developing our bluegrass chops, because that was really in the heart of where we loved bluegrass, and that was what started the Prowlers. Was we were like, well, let's just play once a week. We'll play Thursdays with Outlaw Family Band, and we'll play Tuesdays with the Henhouse Prowlers, and that's what started this band and got this band going.
Wow. You needed that path. Yeah,
totally. And there was a point where we were like, this is working. This is really working.
Yes.
Like we should. I remember we were sitting in my apartment, like all that band originally, the Henhouse Prowlers originally was 6 pieces. And we all were like, all right, we're going to bring this to the next level. Who's going to book the shows? Who's going to promote the shows? We all divided everything up and took on equal parts. And that's what I wanted out of a band, was like
Yes.
everybody with a certain bit of commitment and sacrifice to
Yes.
make it all work together, you know.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's incredible. And that's so important to be. I mean, I feel like in my bands, I'm always the business guy. I'm always that guy. But you're right. Everybody needs a role to feel like it's
Involved.
part of their pie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I remember sending a CD of Haywood Yard stuff to a friend of my dad's, Garth Fundis, and Garth discovered, funny enough, Garth Brooks. He discovered the band Garbage.
Wow.
And Trisha Yearwood, I think he discovered her too. But so he was a really well-established producer in the business. And this was right around 2003, 2004, right when sort of, the buzz of the bluegrass, awakening has sort of died off a little bit. And his response to me was, I just don't get it. And then literally like a year later, Mumford & Sons like exploded, and it was totally our sound, right?
Yeah.
It was totally like the rock bluegrass kind of vibe. But yeah, you just, right time, right place kind of thing.
Absolutely.
It has a lot to do with it. And that mindset is killer. I mean, that has a lot to do with it.
It does. And there's also like the, like you said, right time, right place. But all these people that I keep hearing, oh, this guy just blew up overnight. And it's like, nobody blows up overnight.
No.
If you're good enough to blow up, you've put 20 years into it before that.
Totally.
You know, and
at least thinking about it.
Yeah, and like honing your
conceiving craft. Yes. Like planting the roots. Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool that you kind of did that with, your previous band. So when you're sitting around divvying up these parts for everybody in this room you're talking about, you could feel the success rising.
We can feel at least the desire for it.
Yeah, the desire for it. Yeah. That first step of like, we need a booking agent, or maybe you are the booking agent for a while, or we need a publicist to write about our releases. Like all these little things are important, but you need money before you do them, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, So when did you first feel like you had all the chips in line? Because you guys are a straight up touring band. I mean, you're really doing it.
Yeah, but I still don't feel like I have all the chips in line.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I appreciate you saying that, and I think
it comes off like you do. It comes off
some
like
people's eyes we do, and but I'm still looking to the bands that I admire,
right?
And I try to walk this line between I really work hard not to be jealous of bands that are more successful, and because I feel that on the other end from other bands sometimes too. But I try to be motivated by other bands, but not too disappointed when things don't happen the same way. I have this really strong belief that every band has their own path, and you're never going to get the same opportunities that other bands get. It's just not how it works. And you got to be comfortable with forging your own path in your career. Otherwise, you're going to spend too much time worrying about why things aren't happening. And so
that's perfect.
And so it is easy to look at what we've done as being, we're really successful. And I could stop playing music now and be really happy with what my career has done. I don't want to stop playing music now. But I've tried to hold on to that. Like going back to when I bought that first banjo, I remember my first gig, and I remember I was playing at a coffee shop with those guys at that house that let me play with them. And we played, and I'm sure it was just awful. But I remember at the end of the show, one of the guys handing me $20. And I felt like I'd made it. I was like, I'm here. Like I've arrived. I just got paid $20 to play music. And I try to hold on to that.
It's good. That's huge, man. That's huge.
But we have had, it's funny, like we've had really wild opportunities that other bands never get. But we're probably never going to play Red Rocks. You know, like there's plenty of things that I would like to do that probably aren't going to happen. And I balance those out with things that we've done that other bands won't get a chance to do.
Sure.
You know?
Well, if you've done it all, you have nothing to try for, right?
That's true. That's
right.
Very true.
You know,
yeah.
what are you going to do? I mean, you might as well just, if there's nothing to dream for, you know,
right.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, totally.
Red Rocks has got to be in your brain. Like that's a hope.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm okay if it doesn't come to fruition.
Right. Sure.
It like, I don't want to, it's too easy to make yourself miserable in this business.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yes. It's defeating. It can be. Yeah, for sure. So, well, from what I've seen, man, you guys have done a really great job of, marketing and booking yourselves. And when you come to town, like very few bands, I don't know I can't think of another band right now on the top of my head. And this is crazy to say this day and age, because back in the day it was a thing, which I totally respect. You wear suits on stage.
Right.
And it's like, man, very few bands give a crap about that. And they don't, I mean, I didn't dress up for tonight, but for a show, I try to dress up. I try to look nice and respectable on stage. And there's a thing about that I just love. It really comes with this sophistication and this like, hey, we're serious about this and you're going to enjoy it. And it's such a great vibe, dude. It really is.
I've grown to really love it. Ironically, when we first started, I was angry about it.
Yeah.
I did not want to do it. And we actually had in the early days of the band, we had what we called the tie of shame.
Oh no.
It was pretty much for me. If I forgot a piece of my suit, I had to wear the tie of shame.
Oh no!
It was a "What would Jesus do" tie.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
but really, what happened was I realized quickly that the minute we walked into a club or a bar we were going to play, people knew immediately who we were, and I didn't have to like argue with somebody about whether or not I should get free drinks. And like it just effortlessly, other than putting the suit on, exudes this sense of professional,ism,
right?
As you were just saying,
it like, totally does.
Yeah,
it's a default subconscious vibe.
Yeah.
But
I will say that rarely, but occasionally, I'll have like a hippie come up to me and be like, "Man, I love your band, but why do you got to wear suits?"
Yeah, see, he's all bummed about it.
Yeah, totally.
He's offended.
That actually happened.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah. You guys would look I'd love you so much better if you were just dressed down. Right. That's great. Yeah. That is so great. And I'm a big fan of like nudie suits and just looking sharp. Like Buck Owens always did it. So many did it in the classic country world. Yeah, and it's there's this thing that goes along with just getting ready. Like it's a process, and it's like it's a getting in the mindset. But I gotta say, like, how do you guys play these hot hot shows, like when it's 90 to 105, humid?
I'll tell you once, man, once we played a show in East Africa that was,
oh my gosh,
it was in Djibouti, which is, I think, one of the hottest places on the planet. And it was like, I think the temperature was 125 degrees. And we played outside in the sun.
Jesus.
But like, wow. There's something, you just get used to it. It's like anything. It's like wearing a mask.
Right. Right. Yeah. You just get, they don't even know it's there.
Yeah. Totally.
My kids were wearing masks at home. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Well, they wear them all day. They don't even know.
I love that about kids, honestly. They remind us how ornery we are as adults.
Yes. Like, they totally do. Yeah.
So it's never really felt like that big of an issue. For me, we definitely have had a guy. There's Chris, our guitar player, amazing musician. The heat really does get to him. And there was a time where I was like, we always have to wear our suit jackets.
Yeah.
But he just sweats profusely. And it's like, dude, take your jacket off, roll your sleeves up.
Everybody's different.
Water,
Yeah, keep it going, brother. Yeah, you're just like a puddle of water at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Well, so this takes us to, you know, and I don't want to, we could talk literally for days. I'm fascinated with every angle of your life and what you've become. But the one big thing I want to get across for sure in this podcast is I want to tell people about the Bluegrass Ambassadors and kind of what Henhouse Prowlers, the nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
It's the official 501c3 of the Henhouse Prowlers. So it's not the band itself. You're now a subsidiary of a nonprofit, I think, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, the businessy part of it has been a struggle for me. I'm lucky enough to have my bass player, John, plays your role in your bands. He's the business guy.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, I've got 2 credit cards, one for Henhouse Prowlers and one for Bluegrass Ambassadors.
That's incredible.
We have to be really careful about that. Like,
sure.
We're doing a Bluegrass Ambassadors program, and we need to fill the van's gas tank. I do it with the Bluegrass Ambassadors credit card.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty proud of myself when I don't screw it
up. So what you've become through that is a world international, like, I don't even know how to say it. Like you're literally changing people's lives internationally with bluegrass music.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate, I mean, that's not how I would say it, but I appreciate.
Well, you're about the most humble person I know then, because that's what you're doing.
So we remember, this is all connected. Remember when I was telling you about when I got my banjo stolen in San Francisco and we were auditioning for that program called American Music Abroad? And American Music Abroad is the descendant of a program from the 1950s in the middle of the Cold War. We were having this kind of war of culture with Russia, and Russia was trying to convince the world that we were inhumane, and they were right. Because it was, you know, there was a lot of injustice going on in America at the time, and so our government, our State Department was like, hey, if Russia is telling these stories about us and exporting their culture in the form of ballets and orchestras, then we should do that. How do we export American culture? And they realized that jazz music was like the ultimate form of American culture. And so they sent artists like Louis Armstrong and Dave Brubeck, all these incredible artists all over the world to do these amazing tours. And I've spoken to people in Africa that were there and remember Louis Armstrong coming through, and it changed people's lives.
Yes.
And that program was so successful that the State Department was like, this stuff works. It's worth us putting money into it. And they continue to do that. Wow. And so that program was called the Jazz Ambassadors Program. And eventually in the early 90s, it started to open up to more than just jazz. And so what's another really great example of American culture? But bluegrass music.
Totally.
You know? And so we applied for that program and got it. And they sent us to West Africa. We applied for it again. They sent us to East Africa. And we started developing relationships with State Department people. And, you know, when you're a foreign service officer in an embassy across the world, they put you in an embassy for 2 years, and then you go to a different country. And so people that we had really good relationships with in Rwanda, they went on to Cambodia. And they were like, hey, we need to do a cultural program. Who should we call? And the person's like, hey, I worked with this band in Rwanda that was amazing. The Henhouse Prowlers. Let's bring them to Cambodia.
That is crazy.
And what we realized as a band, I mean, we were having these mind-blowing experiences, learning about these other cultures and really immersing ourselves in these cultures, learning music, learning how to sing in their language. And we realized that we were getting a lot out of it, but then we'd come home and we'd play these music and tell these stories to our American audiences, and they were just as moved as we were.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how many I've heard multiple times. I've had people come up to me And kind of the big hit that we learned that was not an American song was this Nigerian song called Chop My Money. That's just the most infectious song ever. And people love it. And we get requested that song as much or more than any of our original tunes.
Get out of here. That's crazy.
And I've had multiple people come up to me and say, man, I got to tell you, I had a Nigerian guy living in my apartment building, and I went up to him and I was like, hey, do you know the song Chop My Money? And the Nigerian is just like, of course I know that song. And he's like, now we're best friends. And all because you guys taught me that song. And there really is this undercurrent of how powerful music is as this tool to kind of bring people closer together, and an opportunity for us to go take that programming to kids in schools and also adults at festivals and do workshops and talk about our travels and fold it all into this kind of message of music being this wonderful tool to,
Yes.
And so that's my elevator pitch for Bluegrass Ambassadors.
Yeah, well, it's killer. And that's not even close to how, multi-tiered it is. It's really something else. And
Thanks.
yeah, just with the very little I researched on it, it's just like, as a nonprofit myself with the Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame, it's like, it's so cool to see people jumping on that bandwagon and saying, let's bring you here. That's not only internationally, but even around the States. Cause I'm sure you do the same around the States too, right?
Man. We've got, I gave a talk about Bluegrass Ambassadors at IBMA, the Bluegrass gathering last year.
Oh, cool.
And a couple months later, I got a phone call from the Earl Scruggs Center in Western North Carolina, which is, where Bluegrass emerged. And the Earl Scruggs Center called us, and they want us to come down there in May and work with local kids around the Earl Scruggs Center. And what's really cool about that is that, there's plenty of bluegrass musicians down there, like the best bluegrass musicians.
Sure.
But the woman who has us come, who runs the center, she's like, look, I think it'll be inspiring for these kids to see that this band from Chicago loves music so much from where these kids are from that they've made their life revolve around it. She's like, I want to inspire these kids to realize how important their local culture is and how to take it to heart. And hearing it from people they know might not have the same effect as hearing it from city boys.
Right. Sure.
And they also want to be culturally inclusive and talk about the real history of bluegrass, which has jazz roots, African roots even. And and so we're uniquely positioned to be able to do that. And it's something we love doing,
Oh, man. Well, you guys all look, from the videos I've seen online, which I urge people watching to go out and check it out. The videos are so cool, and how it affects the crowd, and the kids are freaking out, and and especially when you're playing these songs in different languages, it's so cool. Just the way it affects people. And was there a story about you guys pulling up in a cab or something and singing a song to and he knew
we got back from Kyrgyzstan, and in Kyrgyzstan we learned this song, and there's this dance that goes along with it.
Okay.
And our fiddle player at the time was waiting out in front of Martyrs. We had a show that night, and he was wearing this traditional Kyrgyz hat called a kalpak that's really unique.
Oh my gosh,
you don't see these hats anywhere in the world except Kyrgyzstan. And he was wearing the hat, and turns out there's a lot of cab drivers in Chicago from Kyrgyzstan. And this cab driver was driving by and stopped his car and rolled down his window and was like, where'd you get that hat? And our fiddle player was like, I got it in Kyrgyzstan. And he started doing the dance. And the guy pulled his phone out and filmed it. And
oh my gosh!
Posted it on this social media platform that's popular over there called Telegram, and it went viral again after we got back. And I got an email from the embassy 2 weeks later, and they were like, "What the hell? You guys are blowing up over here after
That is crazy.
It was really cool.
Is this? I'm gonna try something real quick. So is
Did you
this?
find it?
I think I found the hat.
Oh yeah, it's Kalpak. Kalpak.
Is this it?
No.
No.
You're probably if you just type it into Google, you'll find it.
All right, I'm gonna get that off the screen. Yeah. Anyway, that's amazing. That story is so badass.
Yeah, my Kalpak's around here somewhere, but
is it?
Yeah.
There's Prince of Wales wearing one. I don't know if that's it.
It's white and usually, yeah. I've got it here. Am I allowed? Am I able to share?
Yeah. Let's share your screen real quick.
Well, let me see here.
Should be right on the bottom there.
You'd think I'd know how to.
I should never have introduced a new element of technology to our stream here, but no, I think it is.
Share screen. Is it going to give me an option to share a window?
Yeah, it should say which browser you want to share.
Yeah. Window.
Yep.
Is it that? Oh, I see. So.
Yep. Here you go.
So can you see?
Oh yeah.
This is it, right?
Oh,
right?
So it's like almost like a taller beanie.
Yeah.
With a design on the side.
Yeah.
Okay, for those that are doing audio only.
Here's another one, like a variation.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
So the designs on the side change.
Yeah, they can. And what's funny is that you wait, stop sharing. What's funny is that I never seen them before, but you see them the minute you can't fly directly to Kyrgyzstan, but so you have to like fly to Doha or
sure.
But the minute you get on the plane that flies to Kyrgyzstan, everybody's wearing those hats.
Oh, really? So they're like ball cap, like baseball hats.
There's a dozen of them on the plane, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's so badass.
Yeah,
so cool. Of course he was taken back when he saw some wearing the hat.
Because only people from Kyrgyzstan wear those hats.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. God, that's wonderful, man.
Yeah. And then that's at the core, that is what we've learned, that when you take a minute to learn something about somebody's culture,
right,
it opens up communication in ways that you just can't imagine. You know, like going to a Nigerian and saying, "Hey, I love your music," is the same thing as wearing a hat from another culture. You know, like,
yeah,
it's like, "Hey, I think your stuff's cool." You know?
Yeah. So initially, this show, Dishin with Musicians, is it started as a show where we talked a little bit about food and a little bit about music and a lot about life, right? And so I got to ask, like, on these international travels, like, what's your favorite food story? I'm sure you've eaten some amazing things.
Yeah, I mean, I've got really a million great food stories.
I bet.
I mean, Kyrgyzstan was actually interesting because we've been to several countries in Central Asia. So like Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Russia, and their food is connected. But most of those countries don't understand the concept of vegetarian. And my bass player, John's a vegetarian. And so I remember we ate at this really nice traditional Kyrgyz restaurant in Bishkek, the capital. And we have a translator with us, and we're like, "Hey, can you make sure there's no meat in this?" Like, and it just doesn't compute. And they're like, "Oh yeah, no meat. We got these dumplings called manti that are amazing." And they show up with the manti, and we cut them open, and there's pumpkin in it, but there's also mutton, like sure, sheep meat in it, and like, like, no, it's pumpkin, like,
they're trying to sell it off.
Yeah.
Like, there's.
Yeah, and I mean, man, I've eaten so much incredible.
Wow.
Borscht in Russia. I really fell in love with borscht.
Oh yeah, I love borscht. Yeah.
And then I remember a really fascinating food experience. It wasn't like I left feeling culinarily mind blown. But
Sure.
we were in Niger in West Africa, which is it's a tough country to be in. Niger has definitely gotten short shrift compared to the rest of the world. It's the middle of the Sahara Desert,
Oh, wow.
and there's just not a whole lot of resources, and what resources there are have been pilfered, and we had to drive across the country, which was fascinating. It was like a 12-hour drive through the Sahara Desert.
Oh my gosh.
And we stopped at this tiny village to eat lunch and sat in this shack. That's all I can say. It didn't look
Wow.
like a restaurant. And they brought out these metal plates with what I don't know what it's called in Niger. Niger's a francophone country, but I know what it's called in the Gambia, which is was an English colony. It's called domada, and it's like a peanut stew, really hot, spicy hot, and with chicken in it. And but the foundation of it is peanuts, like ground up peanuts, and it's delicious. But they brought us these plates, these metal plates with stew on it, and I was starved. And you know, when you're in those countries, you're like, oh man, is this going to make me sick?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
And it's not a slight to where you are. It's the fact that no matter where you travel internationally, you're probably going to get sick because there's just stuff in the air and around that your stomach isn't used to.
Yeah.
I remember eating this food, and I remember recognizing that the chicken that was in this stew had not been genetically modified, hadn't been pumped full of hormones. It was a whole chicken that was about that big.
Yeah.
And
large softball size. Yeah.
Yeah. And I could get maybe 4 good bites of food, of meat out of it. But that's what chicken actually is like.
Yes.
You know?
Real chicken. Yeah.
The stuff that we eat in the States has been pumped full of so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I just, that memory will always stick with me. Is like,
wow.
Whoa, like I was eating chicken the way it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
Not the way we've made it. You know?
Right. So do you have a tour guide a lot of times? Because if you're driving through the Sahara Desert, and like, how would you guys really know how to navigate yourself?
Oh yeah. I mean, these trips, when we do stuff with the State Department, it's the easiest way to see a country because you're treated like kings. I mean, like we've got an entourage with a giant box truck that has gear in it. And then the vehicles we're riding in are usually air conditioned.
Oh wow, yeah.
And we're not driving anywhere. I beg them to let me drive.
Yeah, yeah. On the desert, yeah.
Right. And the last trip we took was to Uzbekistan, and I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, if they're gonna fly me to these places and have us do this stuff, I'm gonna go by I can always tell them to drop me there early, or I can stay late. So I went to Uzbekistan by myself for 5 days before our program started.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I rented a car and I went and drove across into the mountains of Uzbekistan because, you know, of course, like why would you not do that?
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Wow. Yeah. What an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. Wow. So you've seen things that many, many of us probably will never see. That's so great.
Yeah. But I also want to, I mean, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Rwanda, like these countries that you just either don't know anything about or have some kind of misunderstanding about. Those are some of the most incredibly beautiful and peaceful places I've ever been in my life. And if I'm always trying to tell people, like, if you have any sense of adventure, do it. Go to one of these places. Like they really are incredibly welcoming to foreigners. And you're going to have experiences that you'll never have otherwise.
Wow.
You know, like, and it's so important to get out of this country once in a while, I think, for everybody.
For sure. For sure, man. Yeah.
To get that perspective. So.
Yes. Well, that's, you know, it's amazing how all of what we just talked about kind of ties back to that banjo in the window, right? It's like been the catalyst. It's been it's been like your flying rug, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
That's
feel
so cool.
very fortunate about it.
That's so badass. That's so great, man. This has been one of the best times. Thank you so much. And I hope to get you back here as much as I can to Nebraska. You have some huge fans. When I posted this the show the other day, where there's people commenting about seeing you at Folk and Rude. So I really want to get you back here as much as we can, and
yeah, absolutely.
And support your music, man. So great.
Thank you. People can check out www.henhouseprowlers.com and then bluegrassambassadors.org.
Yep.
For that stuff. And I hope you tell your wife how moved I was about the guitar story, man.
I will, man. I will. She actually commented in and she said the best gift I ever gave.
Seriously.
So
that
good.
is just amazing.
Yeah. It's so good, man.
Respect,
so good.
Respect to her and respect to you, dude. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thanks, man. Well, this has been so good for everybody joining us tonight. Thanks so much. If you want to listen to it later, it's going to be on every streaming outlet, so you can listen to the podcast audio later. You can watch the video. The video is always around. So that's the beauty of technology too. This will forever be posted on our pages. And we want to thank Toon Balloon and Red Rebel Media for sponsoring. Ben Wright, Henhouse Prowlers, Bluegrass Ambassador. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was really good catching up with you.
Cool too, man. You too. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Right on.
All right. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye-bye.